All right. Welcome to Study Group. Welcome, Chuck.
Thank you, Derek.
Welcome, Kitty.
Yep.
Welcome, everyone at home. Today, we're going to tackle a hard problem, and that's on consciousness and mind. And we've kind of seen how the experts in the field of science and psychology have kind of had a challenge with seeing how we receive mind, and they're really kind of struggling with where does mind come from, perhaps our brain or somewhere in this internal process. So we're going to kind of go with what the Urantia Book talks about and see if we can make it a little bit easier to understand.
Sure enough.
All right, so let's get started with our first slide here.
Okay, so the hard problem of consciousness. And in the next slide, we'll get into a little more exactly what that is. But as by way of framing this question, it's important to realize, and the Urantia Book points this out, that our minds, they describe as a temporary intellect system loaned to human beings for use during a material lifetime. So implied in that little statement is that we have a material body, we're living a material life, but we receive the gift of mind that enables us to function.
It's a gift.
And make decisions and move through our lives. So let's go to this next slide.
Okay.
So here's a description of the hard problem. This has been around for a while. And for those of you who are not familiar with it, it's a sort of a famous question, famous problem, you might say. So the hard problem of consciousness, this was first articulated by David Chalmers, who's a professor of philosophy at these institutions. And he first coined the phrase and formulated the problem in a paper he wrote called Facing Up to the Problem of Consciousness in 1995. And Chalmers put it this way. He said, "The hard problem of consciousness is the problem of how physical processes in the brain give rise to the subjective experiences of the mind and of the world." So if you're coming from a purely materialist perspective, it's really hard to fathom how we can have this arena of awareness and feelings and thoughts and all these things going on in our consciousness.
Outside of our hardware.
Yeah, right. So just to finish up with this, it says, how and why are we endowed with consciousness? So that's part of the question. Why do we even have consciousness? Science has found no explanation, and the question has become one of the most contentious problems in philosophy of mind today. It has been either addressed or dismissed by almost every modern philosopher. And this is what I found when I did some research on this, that it has been addressed by many, many people and some spiritual leaders as well. But as we'll see, with help from the authors of the Urantia Book as we proceed here, that I think what we're going to find out is the answer to this problem, why it seems so hard, is that the understanding or the insight that's necessary to understand it is blocked from view by the a priori assumptions of those who are studying the problem. So this essentially boils down to trying to approach it from a materialistic perspective.
Yeah, and that's all that people can see, right? So people are working from how does this mechanism generate this huge expansive arena that we call mind and consciousness, that we all share in common of some sort, right? So as we get into this, we'll kind of talk about some of the examples in maybe technology that draw on like smart devices and smartphones, things like that. Right,
the mind is received.
Right.
It's consciousness is received. It's not generated from the physical level. So
okay, well, let me get into some of these slides and we'll talk about how we receive these gifts. And here being near Easter, maybe a little hallelujah and open up some gifts. Okay, so for this first one comes from paper 112, and it says, "There exists a great cosmic gulf between matter and thought, and this gulf is immeasurably greater between material mind and spiritual love. Consciousness cannot be explained by any theory of mechanistic electronic association or materialistic energy phenomena." And let me just continue with this next one.
Go ahead.
"Mind is not inherent in energy. Energy is receptive and responsive to mind. Mind can be superimposed upon energy, but consciousness is not inherent in the purely material level." So we talk about this, as they say, this gulf between material existence or matter and between that and thought in mind, and then an even greater distance or a gulf between that thought and mind and spiritual love, which is really kind of the energy and purpose of what God is doing, what this whole existence is founded on.
That's really the directive level of all things. That's where we find our purpose, our purpose in life. So one of the revelations, you might say, I mean, not it's necessarily original with the Urantia Book, but for me, one of the revelations in the Urantia Book is this architecture of reality where we understand that purpose comes from the spiritual level that plays out through the mind level as it's grasped and understood and forms decisions. And then that's played out on the material level. So the flow of reality in terms of manifestation goes from the spirit level to the mind level to the physical level. But in academia, and particularly materialistic science, the reality is looked at in the opposite direction. It's like looking at reality through the wrong end of a telescope.
It's very subjective. It's very personalized. I think, therefore I am type of thing. Because you're doing this stuff, so you're creating the frequencies of how you vibrate and interact with the cosmos or whatever it is, or even if it's just intellectual assumptions of things.
Yeah, and there's this assumption that it all originates from the physical level. Like I came across an article in The Economist, for example, where they were talking about this hard problem. And they said, oh, everyone agrees consciousness arises in the brain. Right? So that's the a priori assumption that we're going to try and sort of look at more closely today, I mean, in this podcast. And we're going to find that consciousness does not arise in the brain. The brain receives consciousness. So it's much like a smartphone. A smartphone's not smart until you turn it on, until it connects to the cloud. There's no intelligence in the phone itself. There may be software, but the way they're approaching this problem is as if you could find the software by taking the hardware apart.
Right.
And that's not how these devices work, and that's not how we work either.
Right. Even if you took apart the brain and all its pieces, mind map and all the neurofeedback and all of that, you're never going to find the source of mind, because really the brain is this antenna that's receiving all of this stuff and then distributing it through our hardware and our network.
You're right. And then once you have that mind functioning, then you can receive spirit insight. Then you can self-realize relationships with love, and also receive everything that goes with spirit.
Right. Like us. We have mind. So now we have an opportunity to bridge that gulf between just thinking and now spiritualized, identified thinking, becoming more godlike.
Thinking with purpose.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, well, that's cool. Let me read this next set of quotes here. So from paper 36, animal mind and human mind are gifts of the local universe mother spirit. So we're all in the same arena, essentially, because we're all bestowed with this.
We're all connected.
Yeah. So it's a network.
It's like we're all connected to the same server.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. We're on the same network. And then the next one, material evolution has provided you a life machine, your body, into your hands, subject to your own decisions, has been given mind, and it is by mind that you live or die. It is within this mind and with this mind that you make those moral decisions which enable you to achieve God-likeness. So it's really a wonderful opportunity that we've been given this arena to exercise our spirituality, and an opportunity where we can start to choose and ask to align with the higher ways within this arena, so that we can grow in our sense of identity, sense of purpose, sense of contribution to spirit realities. And that in its sense is becoming more godlike.
And actually have personality relationships with each other and with deity. So that first comment about animal mind and human mind, and then about material evolution has provided you a life machine. So this material evolution is, as we look over the whole scope of evolution on this planet, we see the emergence of animals in all these various forms, and then in ascending forms as well. So finally, we get to the higher mammals, like our little kitty here. And all these evolving animals have mind, right? But sort of crowning that evolution is human mind, which has the capacity to receive spirit. And that's kind of what separates us from the animals. But we arrive there through animal evolution, which I think is a fascinating technique for creating this opportunity to have a first life in the universe. We begin our experience of the universe as mortal creatures and physical bodies, but our physical bodies are marvelously designed to be able to receive mind and spirit.
Right.
It's like this super connectivity potential that even in a physical form, and that almost has to be revealed, that reality. I mean, the science approaching it from the physical level is never going to discover that.
Yeah, it's very interesting that we're kind of these walking, breathing smart devices that doesn't know they're smart.
Right, something like that.
They need
right.
to engage in a certain smart connectivity that allows for this spiritual intelligence and connectivity that then will uplift and contribute and fulfill and all these other things that we're kind of so much longing for, this spiritual fulfillment in our lives and our identity and our associations with others, that this gives us a connectivity point to contribute within.
Exactly. So it's like each morning when we wake up, we log on, essentially.
Right.
We log on to our mind circuits. But as we exercise our will within that arena, we can choose spirit. We can reach for spirit. We can want spirit. We can, ask questions, have dialogue, have yearning, have desires.
You can invite spirit in anything you do.
Exactly.
That's one of the things is like, unless I'm doing this practice, spirit doesn't want to be involved. God doesn't care unless I'm vibrating at a higher frequency or whatever it is, you know what I mean? But even Jesus said, you can in any earth career, you can bring God into it, which makes it an honorable thing. So even if you're just washing the dishes or whatever, you can invite spirit there.
Right. So
and that's a beauty of being the smart device that we do have, that we can connect to it.
Exactly. And as they say here, we can make those moral decisions which enable us to achieve God-likeness. So that our spiritual growth is very much dependent on our decisions, but we have input into those decisions from spirit. We have the capacity to receive that. That's like a higher channel.
Yeah. There's spirit influence and spirit insight. And as we've talked in these podcasts in the past, not only is there demonstration in Jesus's life, but there's also the opportunity to be loyal to the spirit convictions that the Spirit of Truth is showing you and your thought adjuster is showing you within in your own heart. And in doing that and being loyal to that and following through, you start to learn and gain more insights that reflect the nature of God, really, and in this love that Jesus tried to demonstrate and now teaching you how to do it.
You want to be like that.
Yeah.
It's like, ooh, I want to be like that. Right. How do I become such a masterful, loving person, that's able to make my way through life and actually create, make good things happen.
Have agency.
That's motivated and by truth, beauty, and goodness, so that those realities become more present on this planet.
Amen. All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about the physical brain, shall we?
Okay. All right. So the physical brain, with its associated nervous system, possesses innate capacity for response to mind ministry, just as the developing mind of a personality possesses a certain innate capacity for spirit receptivity. Human consciousness rests gently upon the electrochemical mechanism below, which would be like the brain and nervous system, and delicately touches the spirit Urantia energy system above, which is more like a universe broadcast or a universe provision that's available to everyone, everywhere. So it's like,
that antenna needs to catch it, though.
Antenna, you got to put up your antenna to catch it, right? So that first paragraph is such a revelation to me. I mean, just the idea that our brain and nervous system, you think about your nervous system like it runs through all the way out to the tips of your fingers, to the tips of your toes. It's just hugely, I don't know what, I don't know.
And it can go beyond that. Miles, if you unrolled it out. Yeah.
Yeah. Miles and miles of nerves. Mm-hmm. And then the brain even more. Mm-hmm. So this is literally like an antenna. It's like a physical antenna that is designed to respond to mind, to receive mind. Just like a phone becomes smart, when it connects to the cloud. And as we're not, we don't think about it, we just wake up every day and go about our business. We don't realize that we're receiving mind is what gives us our consciousness to be able to do the things we do. But they're explaining how that happens so that there's actually a design system so that our deity creators can give us what we need in order to receive these gifts.
Yeah, this capacity to be able to respond to mind ministry. Mm-hmm. So this is where they can reach out and touch us.
Yes.
Essentially, and we can reach out and touch them.
Right.
Now, if we look at the whole idea of the fact that mind is a gift from the local universe mother spirit, we'll get into the adjutant mind spirits in the next podcast. But you and I have always marveled at the fact that the local universe mother spirit is the one deity that we can touch, because given this physical material, these gifts that she's created, that this is the one time that we can actually physically touch Kitty, touch each other, touch animals.
And she touches us.
And she touches us, yes.
Right.
And so that's a really awesome revelation for me, is the interactivity and connectivity with deity on a material physical level.
Yes.
And that's what mind is this gift that so gently touches on your physical level and so gently touches on the spiritual levels that you can start to traverse that gap and get there with guidance as well, spiritual guidance.
Right. She's the one that can give mind to a physical organism. That's her unique gift. I mean, we have the Spirit of the Father dwelling within our mind, but that's one kind of influence. Then we have the Holy Spirit that sort of envelops us or is with us, and we can receive that as well. But it's the Mother Spirit who touches us physically and makes that connection. She's the one that sparks the synapse between consciousness and being in a physical.
You're talking about breath of life or the rhythm.
Being in a physical body.
Yeah. It responds to these rhythms, these patterns, the heartbeat, the way the lungs breathe, music. It's in us.
And you think about just the expansiveness of our consciousness, our arena. I'm looking down out the window down the street right now. It's like, whoa, there's mountains. The arena. Or you look up at the stars. I don't know quite how to put it. The reach of our minds is pretty awesome. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Just on a purely awareness level. But then you begin to add into that our capacity for thought and our capacity for wondering and our curiosity and our desire to...
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because we're talking about either being a victim to thoughts, and that this mind is this thing where my brain is out of control. I got to take these drugs or learn these practices to discipline my brain, because that's disciplining my mind. But we can also think about all these opportunities for guidance and creativity, insight from deity within the realm of mind. And now the influence and inspiration from that, we can start to gain our own agency in how we choose to interact in the mind.
Right. In this mind arena.
Just as some people log into video games and play online or whatever, this is another thing we're logging into through our willful choice to do that.
Right. And just think about any conversation. My mind consciousness and your mind consciousness are interacting. We're sharing ideas. And when we find points of agreement or shared understanding, that brings a common ground in where we're sort of sharing a grasp of a larger arena. So there's this potential, we begin to discover there's this potential for reach, not just in our human social arena, but also into the universe and with all of our deity, the angels and everything else.
Yeah, cool. That kind of brings us to this
so
next opportunity.
Let's go to this next one. So this kind of takes it to the spiritual level. In every mortal, there exists a dual nature, the inheritance of animal tendencies and the high urge of spirit endowment. The physical bodies of mortals are the temples of God. Mortal men have, and women, of course, have something from God himself, which actually dwells within them. Their bodies are the temples thereof. So what they're speaking of here in Urantia Book terms, of course, is the thought adjuster, or in more general terms, the Spirit of God that lives with, there's a spirit presence of the first source and center of the creator of all reality living within us, trying to teach us and guide us. So that reaches down through our minds or into our minds and brings value perceptions and all kinds of things into our decision-making process. But that's happening in a physical body, which is of animal origin. So that's kind of what makes this life difficult sometimes, is that we have this dual nature that they're talking about. So the animal tendencies we have to live with. We did a show once on the vestigial traits. It's kind of part of what that's about. We have to, we kind of struggle with our physical nature. Oftentimes we have to deal with it and feed ourselves, get sleep, do all the things that are necessary. But at the same time, there's this gift from like the center of all reality living within us. And that creates this sort of tension or this opportunity to reach higher in our process.
Yeah, I like that
growth.
tension where pressure from above
allows
for you to see an opportunity that there is an alternative. Because when you're stuck with the material identification, there aren't many alternatives, man.
Right. It really feels like a trap.
Uh-huh.
Right. I'm just trapped in my body, and that's the way it is. And
there's only one way to escape from that.
Yeah, right.
That's cutting yourself off,
Yeah, right. But these gifts they're telling us about give us the opportunity or the potential to have relationships.
That we can hold God as a temple.
Right,
yeah.
Right. So this idea that our bodies are the temples of God, when you realize that, I kind of want to sit up straight. I want to make my body be really a functional temple for that presence.
And that's relative to how much you discern value of hosting God.
Yeah.
And then what your impression or vision of what God is.
Mm-hmm. Right. And that comes through our minds.
Because I will say, and you're right, but I will say that there's so many people that I've met who maybe won't follow any kind of type of spiritual identification, but will at least comment that God is an energy, that they believe in an energy.
Sure. Yeah.
There's this overlying energy.
That's a start. It's a start.
But then, then we talk about, just energy itself might not have mind, but mind can be superimposed on energy and spirituality can be superimposed through that mind when mind is superimposed. So it's a step, and then I always feel like an opportunity to introduce the personal association.
So then, God. That's the big leap from having that realization that there's more to reality, that there is some kind of an energy or something out there that that we come from or that we're related to. But then to grasp that there's personality, the deity has personality.
That's a big hump.
That's a big jump.
And that's what they say, as we opened up with that first quote, that's an even, it's a big gulf to jump.
It's an even bigger gulf.
And and without coming to these technical terms, they kind of take away the personality from the person. Like, I get it. People want to vibrate at a higher frequency or be at a 5D level or whatever the terminology is, because our poor society is struggling for spiritual language.
Exactly. Yeah.
And hopefully we can give some back here with the Urantia revelation and stuff. But in the end, just as Chuck and I and Kitty are here as your friends, trying to reveal some of this stuff so that we can all kind of grow within it in understandable ways, as Jesus did, is he was trying to reveal the nature of the Father in understandable ways, that this is the personality identification in the cosmos. This is how we all interact with each other. It's built on love. So we're always trying to help each other out and move forward. And if you can invite that into your life and into your mind, then and accept it, then you do have opportunities to move forward.
Yeah. Yeah. And part of it is just realizing the reality of the things that we live with and experience every day. People always bring up the analogy like with the fish in water. The fish doesn't know it's in water because it's always in water, right? Mm-hmm. It's kind of the same way with personality. We have this gift of being personal, of having selfhood, of having will and the ability to communicate and engage. And we just kind of take it for granted without realizing what a gift that is. And that's of the nature of God. We're like kind of created in the image of God in that sense. So if we have personality, then God also has personality. Mm-hmm. And that's what creates the potential for a relationship, a growing relationship.
Absolutely. So I feel like today we kind of opened part of the gift. And this is just really a big gift opening
right, we got more presents to open.
And, I came up with a good metaphor where it's just kind of like sometimes you might give a child a gift, but that child doesn't know how to properly use the gift yet until the father or the gift giver can kind of show them how to.
Yeah, this is how you turn it on. This is where you got to plug it in first.
Yeah. And this is what it can do. You don't just bang it against the wall. You can do all this stuff. And so that's just kind of what we're trying to do is help reveal some of these gifts that we've been given. And in the next podcast, we're going to look at some of the gifts like the adjutant mind spirits and see how we can use those and engage with those as well.
So I remember those gifts. Sometimes you'd need an instruction manual.
Right.
And the thing about being a human being is we don't have an instruction manual. We don't really know how we work,
exactly,
in very important ways. So the Urantia book kind of is that. And that's why we're so excited about it and wanting to do these podcasts, because it gives us so much in that sense. That it really is like an instruction manual for what it even means to be a human being.
Yeah, and how to serve. And so we're trying to
how to find these gifts and then use them in service. Yeah.
So we're investing our talents that we've been given. We're not burying them, and hopefully this is a good demonstration. But thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
Thanks, Chuck.
Sure.
Thanks, Kitty.
My pleasure.
Everybody at home, we'll be back with another one on Adjutant Mind Spirits, and we'll keep on opening gifts.
Indeed. Yeah. Thanks for joining us.
So happy Easter.
Yep.